Good evening, everyone. Clerk Weed, could you take the roll, please?
Alderman Wilson. Here. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Here.
Alderman Suffredin. Here. Alderman Ravel. Here. Alderman Rainey. Here.
There she is. All right.
Alderman
Here.
Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Here. Alderman Nguyen.
All right. And I know Alderman Fisk is on her way. And I appreciate everybody letting the council have a little break there. I know they had a long planning and development meeting. And so welcome to the Monday, October 23rd, Evanston City Council meeting. Couple quick announcements. One, we have someone up here on the dais who is it's their birthday today. I won't give away their age, but happy birthday to our city clerk, Devon Reed. All right. It also, we did a proclamation earlier today. Tomorrow is World Polio Day, and as I've mentioned before, we are very fortunate to live in a city that is home to Rotary International, that along with some other organizations has virtually eradicated polio from the planet, which is pretty impressive. So tomorrow is, again, World Polio Day. I have here on the agenda Evanston Own It for a quick presentation. And are they?
Here.
Yeah.
Oh, they are still here.
Faithful.
All right, let's.
Faithful.
Yes.
Yay.
Hello, Pastor. All right.
This is past my bedtime.
Thank you for sticking. Thank you for sticking with us.
Mayor Hagerty and members of the City Council, we're back again to make another contribution to the city's summer youth program.
Zolly, if you just want to talk a little closer into the mic, people can hear. Yeah.
I might be tempted to hoop now. Pastor Clifford Wilson, who serves as chairman of Evanston Own It, and the pastors of our community, along with executive board members, believe in our community's young people. We work hard at providing activities through the different churches to promote a sense of community awareness. For this reason, we have for the last few years made an investment in a program that we feel benefits our young people. That is the Summer Youth Program. It is our hope that with the budget challenges that you face, you will keep our community's youth as a priority. Some years ago, Alderman Lionel Baptiste and Alderman Dolores Holmes tried to make the recommendation that a youth division would be developed and anything that concerned the community youth would be handled by that division. We still think that's an idea that has merit. On a personal note, I think that the work that Kevin Brown, the community service manager, does is important. It allows young men, especially young black men in our community, to see someone that is male and looks like them. We have sort of come to the rationale as members of the board of Evanston Own It that we need to do more things to help our young people. And for that reason, we plan to take, during spring break, some young people to the Black History Museum in Washington, D.C. at our expense to show them that they have a great heritage and that they can see for themselves people of color who have worked hard and sacrificed their lives that they may reach that same greatness. We have been good stewards of the funds that our communities have entrusted to our hands. Therefore, Mr. Mayor, we tonight want to present the city with a check of $6,500 for the use in the next year's summer youth program. Now, I would harass Wally, but he's not here, so he got by for tonight. That brings our total contribution to the city's summer youth program of $27,000. So when the question is asked, I don't get that many claps at church. So when the question is asked, what is the Black church doing to support our community? You can answer for us. They are trying their best.
Yeah.
And so this comes from Pastor Clifford Wilson, the Mount Pisgah Ministry, Bishop Carlos Moody Sr., who this year celebrated 60 years as pastor of the Faith Temple Church of God in Christ, Pastor Monty Dillard, the First Church of God Christian Life Center, Pastor Deborah Scott, the Ebenezer AME Church, Pastor Barbara Morgan, the Sherman United Methodist Church, Pastor Emmett Williams III, the Springfield Baptist Church, Pastor Rosalind K. Shorter Henderson from the Bethel AME Church, Pastor Zolly Webb from the Friendship Baptist Church, Pastor Caliph Crutcher, who's the new pastor of the New Hope CME Church, and Pastor Taurus King Skurlot, the pastor of the Mount Zion Baptist Church. And our major supporter is that of Dolores Holmes, a former alderman. So, Mr. Mayor, would you like this now or?
Thank you very much.
Let me get a picture. This is our treasure, so she knows it won't bite.
Excellent.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Oh, we have a concert December the 1st, the Hanging of the Green, and that money is going to be used in order to help send the young people to Washington, D.C.
All right. Thank you very much, Pastor. All right, I want everybody to see, I'm taking this check. It's made out to the City of Evanston. Here you go, Mr. Finance Director. All right. And with that, do we have any announcements, Mr. Acting City Manager, this evening?
No, Mr. Mayor, I have no announcements this evening.
All right. How about City Clerk?
Erica, can you load my 50-page slide? No announcements tonight.
All right.
You won't make it to 26.
We have basically 15 people that have signed up for public comment. I see that the agenda items are sort of all over the board, the budget, some miscellaneous stuff, community partnerships, a few on development. Our rules are 45 minutes. I know it's been a long night for lots of people that are in the audience, as well as up on the dais. So I would ask that everybody please be very respectful in terms of public comment. Everyone will have no more than 3 minutes, but if you can get it done in less than 3 minutes, that would be greatly appreciated by everybody, I think, in this room. So with that, we will get through public comment. We've got, and I apologize as always if I mispronounce people's names or can't read it here. It looks like we got Timothy Schoolmaster, then Mike Vasilko, and then James Hawkins or Harkins.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Lyons, and members of the council, and Clerk Reed and members of the council. I have lived, worked, and gone to school in Evanston for 50 years. I served the city on the police department for over 30 years, and for 35 years I've been an elected trustee and am currently president of the Police Pension Fund. As part of my due diligence there, I frequently have to go through council minutes, and then that's painful. And then I had to go to council videos, and then to my dismay, but ultimately not to my surprise, I found first one, then two, then three, then all of the executive sessions that the 80th Evanston City Council has done have been in violation of both the spirit and letter of the Open Meetings Act. You would not be the first council that has done this, and I am not delusional enough to believe that you will be the last, but I would respectfully request that you correct your ways. There are 4 hoops that the council has to jump through to go into executive session. The first 2 are on the mayor and council. The second 2 are on the clerk. Occasionally, Mr. Wilson eloquently jumped through one of those hoops. Then we failed on the second one, and Mr. Reed, unfortunately, was 0 for 2 in all of his. So I have filed today earlier with Mr. Reed since all meetings not closed in strict conformance with the Open Meetings Act, are required to be open meetings, I have filed a FOIA request today for all of the minutes and verbatim copies of those minutes, because the public has a right to know. Your constituents have a right to know what you were talking about and if you made any decisions there. I heard no objections from Mr. Farrar. I heard no objections from the mayor. I heard no objections from any of the aldermen or from Mr. Reed. And all of you, I believe, are required to take the Attorney General's Open Meeting Act training within 9 months of swearing in. I've FOIA'd your certificates from Mr. Reed. Hopefully you have those. If not, there may be some question whether you're eligible to be where you are, but Mr. Farrar or Ms. Mason Cup could probably help you sort that out. The third thing I am looking, and so given Mr. Reed has had some problems with the minutes, so you may want to reconsider SP1 this evening. The third thing I want to ask you about is the designation of an Open Meetings Act official by the city. I can find no record of this. It's required to be done. It could be the clerk, it could be the Corporation Counsel, it could be anybody, but it's required to be done and filed with the Attorney General. That person has to do the training annually. All the rest of you, once you've done it, you're done. I respect your work. I've read 530 pages of minutes and things, and you have many tough issues to tackle, but the public has a right to know some of those things that you're talking about. And I did also file today with the Illinois Attorney General a complaint, and you may deny my request for these things, but you will not deny the Attorney General's office. Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker, Mike Vasilko, and then James Harkins, and then Janad Rizki. Okay, not seeing Mike. How about James Harkins?
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. My name is James Harkins. I'm the Military and Veteran Outreach Specialist for the Department of Veteran Affairs, the Vet Center. We're located on Howard and Dodge. We fall under Ann Rainey. That's our alderwoman. She supports us greatly. The reason I'm here is because I just wanted to highlight the strong relationship that we have at the VA with your Evanston Public Library. We're located west, and they help us cover the east side. We actually go to the library once a month on Tuesdays. We're there for 4 hours, and we see veterans that we probably ordinarily wouldn't get in contact with. They've been extremely helpful. We've held Vietnam commemoration programs there. We've held veteran resource fairs there. And I really want just to take this time to acknowledge them, because I've been working for the VA for 10 years now, all over the country. And the relationship that we have with the public library is one of the strongest I've ever had with a community partner. Just to give you an example, last month I was there, I saw 25 veterans. Out of those 25 veterans, we were able to get 6 of them VA medical care, 4 of them VA mental health care. We were able to find housing for 2 chronically homeless veterans, and we also was able to get disability for 3 other veterans, and that was all due to our partnership with the library. So I wanted to commend the director, and especially Jill, who's the community outreach person. And I know a lot of times there are a lot of people who complain a lot and may want to say negative things, so I just want to throw a little positivity out there and let you know you guys have a wonderful library. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Janad Rizki, then Katie Smith, and Diane Thodas.
Janad Rizki. Clerk Reed has been under attack, as well as those of us who are critical of what I consider the financial practices of this city. Sometimes when I speak, people say I'm the only one speaking on a topic. I just noticed a good thing Clerk Reed did recently. He basically, when you look at the minutes now, I can actually go and look at the video tied in with those minutes. So I think he is trying to do some positive things, but I want to move on to something else. The city of Evanston now is moving into a lawsuit with the village of Skokie. I want to read what the village of Skokie wrote. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just a paragraph. Evanston's actions are clearly a result of its recent acknowledged budget distress, with a $6 million budget deficit. In addition, Evanston uses more than $5 million in revenue each year from its inflated water rate charges to its own residents as hidden property tax, transferring revenue from its water fund to support myriad projects and programs unrelated to water service. The actual city budget deficit is $11 million. For over 4 years now, I have been asking the council to put the financial operation of the water utility in order. Is it really $11 million, the correct number, as Skokie says? It may or may not be, but it's clear to me the water bills are hidden tax. But I believe what Skokie didn't state to you and what I've been asking about is, for obvious reasons possibly, Evanston residents may be subsidizing the other customers because we have such a mess here. The reservoir project was something that I was very interested in for quite a while. And really, when it started, I felt the city was doing the right thing, trying to spend $3 or $4 million. But in the end, it turned out wanting to spend $20 million. The night they passed that, though, and the reason I never pursued it further is we were told almost the 90% of that would go to the other customers as capital. So tonight I'd like to see where the capital will go and why it isn't going to the other customers and why we are getting hit with those capital charges. It's basically, we hear a lot of things here, and when sometimes I come to the podium, someone runs up and says something, but the facts are never backed up. They're just stated by staff. Frankly, I heard now that we have problems with the major transmission lines going through Evanston, the water lines. This will cost money, but the other customers should be paying for that too. So when Mr. Stonebeck asks you for money to fix those, he ought to be asking for money from the other customers and show the reduced cost rather than the inflated cost of taking all the money. Because it is questionable where else some of this money is going. The budget is colluded completely with the water fund. Should be a separate run business, properly run, which it's not. And that is a big problem here. And frankly, that needs to be fixed. And finally, I've been asking you to do this for several years now. If it's not done, I may have to take steps to organize, as Mr. Schumacher did, to go to the outside authorities or possibly work with the village of Skokie to decide what we can do to correct this. So, thank you.
Thank you, John. We've got Katie Smith, Diane Thodos, and Dan. No last name, Dan. All right. Is Katie Smith here? Okay, no Katie Smith. How about Diane Thodos? I don't see Diane. Okay. How about Dan? All right, Dan's left too. Okay, we're cruising right through. How about Jackie Prince? All right, Jackie. Oh, here comes Jackie. Okay. That's okay, Jackie. You had no idea we were going to get to you. We just ran through 4 other people ahead of you. After Jackie, we're going to have Huang, Bank, and then Mary Rosinski.
Hello, my name is Jackie Prince, and I have been a resident of Evanston, Illinois for about 48 years. I was listening to people who say they're long-term residents of Evanston. I was like, wow, they've been here forever. And I was like, wait a second, I've been here longer. Anyway, I am sort of deviating from what I originally came here to speak about, and it's because I keep hearing people say we have lost our African American community. You don't lose a race, you don't lose a community. My personal belief is that it is done strategically and systematically. You have the city of Evanston has eliminated the township of Evanston. They've eliminated a lot of jobs that were held by blacks. And if you actually, I want to thank all the people who are fighting for affordable housing. And I want to thank all the people speaking up for and fighting for inclusion for everyone. But if you really want to fight for it, don't only do it in housing. You have to do it with jobs. The way you lose a community is they lose their housing. They lose their jobs. They're not able to get jobs that replace the jobs that they lost, or they're not able to get a job that pays a livable, affordable amount of money so that they can keep their families intact. So you have to look at all of those things. You have to look at the pay rates that they're getting. Are they similar to those people who are not of that particular race? Anyway, I have 5 million things to say. I have 3 minutes because my
a
head
minute
is
and
so
10 seconds left.
convoluted with all the stuff that's going on. I'm just going to stop right here, say thank you for everything. Thank you for letting us have the ability to talk, and I'm learning as I go. And it's great to see you everywhere. Have a great night.
You too, Jackie. All right. How about Huang Bank, and then Mary, and then we have Mary Rosinski, and then Eric Passat. So let's see. Do we have Huang? I may be mispronouncing that. Huong. Okay. If we don't, how about Mary?
Hi, my name's Mary Rosinski. I've been an Evanston resident for somewhere around 33 years. I'm actually speaking to the development issue kind of in general, not just the Albion project, because I know, Don, who you had referred to, that it's torturous what we're going through. And I want to remind everyone, we went through this 12 years ago when everyone was fighting. All the wards were having different stuff going on. We did 4 plans. We spent $1 million. We had Lakota leading everything. And the concept was, we're going to come up with plans. The developers are going to know what we expect, and we're going to follow what we said. And this is one of them. Central Street was codified with the efforts of a lot of residents and a really good city staff member. But one thing I want to say is I am actually very pro-development with a good community plan. But a good community plan, like was brought up by some of the aldermen and alderwomen, involves not just tall buildings, because we cannot build ourselves out of our tax problem. What we can do is build for success. I'm in real estate. I am very concerned about the housing stock we are creating downtown, which doesn't allow me to bring my clients from around the North Shore or Evanston who are coming from houses, maybe still have an adult child, to come live in our downtown area. These places are too small, so I think we need to kind of look not just what's going to get us out with building permit taxes today, but what is our village, what is our city rather going to look like in 10 years, in 15 years? And are we going to sustain like the downtowns that some communities have where people love being there and they come and they buy things and they go to restaurants and then they go back to their own town? Central Street plan, as you know, was very contentious, and there was all this stuff, and I even have a memo from all the way back in 2007 by the city staff saying there's adequate parking. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Because they didn't plan for success. They didn't plan for those, the restaurant that got there, which I happen to love. And now there's a holy mess. And when the other side of the street needs to be developed, there's no parking because they gave away everything. People need to come to Evanston to support our businesses. When they come, there is no transportation coming from the west or the north that are going to give us it on a regular basis, like an L every 5 minutes or 15 minutes. So there's got to, if you want them to come here and you don't want them to go to Old Orchard, you don't want them to go to Wilmette, you don't want them to go to Skokie, then give them some place to come and park and leave, and let our businesses and our retail have a really, really good basis. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, Eric Passat, then Matthew Dagler, then Claire Kelly.
As everybody knows, my name is Eric Passett. I'm a long-term resident of Evanston, about a little bit over 30 years, even though I don't look that old, and also the owner of North Shore Apartments and Condos. And I'm not speaking up so much against the Albion, as I said in the planning development meeting. I'm more speaking up as what all the development's going to do to the real estate market. You say that more development, Alderman Rainey said more development's going to bring down the prices of rentals. There's already a crack in the real estate market. I mean, I'm not saying that, we're seeing more vacancies, in our business, and and now it's the off season, so that could be one reason. And we've already seen the demand starting to, not dwindle, but go down. Now we're going to build, forget about the Albion, okay? We're going to build a lot more units, or there are a lot more on the docket. I still don't see where all these people are going to come from. So no condos are suggested for whatever reason. Not only is the congestion going to be, you're going to see a whole bunch of vacant buildings. We've seen that in the 80s, seen it in the 90s in Chicago. It's going to happen again here in Evanston. And I guess I would urge us to think about what we're doing before we do it, because tomorrow night there's another one. And then 2 more weeks from now, there'll be another one suggesting. And I know we talked about this before. People talk about there's no parking in downtown Evanston. I tend to beg to differ. I don't think people know where it is. There's a big parking lot right next to Smiley Brothers, almost never occupied. There's a couple other parking lots in Evanston that are almost never occupied. There's one in Main Street, right behind the office I'm in, never occupied. Nobody knows where they are. So I beg to differ that there is not any parking. I just don't think people are aware of it. So, maybe something, Saturday night at 6 o'clock, we go to Smiley Brothers, parking way over there, but everybody's looking for it on the street. I don't think there's a big enough sign. There's this little sign that says parking available. Who's going to see it? So I know I've suggested that before, but parking lots tend to go unused. The one behind our office, I don't see anybody ever parking there. But the street parking there is full, because nobody knows there's parking behind that office at all. So, enough said.
Great. Thank you, Eric. We got Matthew Dagler, then Claire Kelly.
Hi, my name's Matthew Dagler. I'm a program manager with an agency called the National Able Network. We're a social services nonprofit agency, and we have an office in the Evanston Public Library. I just wanted to give you guys a better idea of what we are able to do for the community and that sort of thing. So we're, like I said, a social services nonprofit. We focus on workforce services. I manage our Evanston and Skokie offices. So we see just walk-in clients between 200 and 300 a month into our resource center on the 3rd floor of the library. That's including workshops, including seeing our regular clients as well. We also carry a client caseload of around 200 between Evanston and Skokie. Our placement rates are in the high 80%, so that's people who come in and leave with a job. So I just want to give you a better idea of the things we do. One thing I also wanted to mention was we do a lot of workshops and stuff that are just open to the community. Anyone who wants to come in and is able to sign up and take part in them. And, last when I was looking at the plans, we're talking about renovation plans and stuff like that. And one thing that was really exciting to me about it was there's a lot more spaces for stuff like that. Right now, booking rooms can be difficult because, we have programming and other programming is very important as well. So that's something that was just really exciting to see. Also, there was a window in our office, which would be nice to have, which we don't have one now. So that would be really nice. But yeah, so I just want to let you guys have a better idea of services that are provided there and let you know that we appreciate the space. So thanks.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. Claire Kelly, then Madeline Ducray.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
could he send us all some kind of literature email about
For the National
service?
Able Network?
Yeah. I had no idea they were there. Yeah. So we can send it out to our constituents?
Absolutely, yeah. So we can give you definitely information about what we do and how we do it, and we can
Something
also.
that we can then forward.
Yeah, absolutely, we can do that. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Claire. And then we'll have Madeline Ducray, then Matt Rogers.
Claire Kelly. Thank you again very much for allowing our citizen group time to present our concerns about the Albion development this evening. We do appreciate it. And I just want to talk about zoning and how much zoning, as you know, matters, and city plans matter tremendously, not just in terms of aesthetics and walkability and all that, of course, but also zoning and city plans reflect, and they do reflect, and they can reflect our cities, whether or not our city is striving towards inclusivity or exclusivity in terms of housing and commerce and more. And I think it's our zoning and our plans can perpetuate those trends that the economist Timothy Allison spoke about tonight, or we can develop and strive towards zoning and plans that reverse those trends. And by the way, I do hope that each one of you is concerned about those trends that he identified this evening. With regard to the Albion, I believe we can do much, much better by our Evanston community. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Claire. Madeline Ducre, and then Matt Rogers, then Kira Kelly.
Good evening, everyone. Madeline Ducre here. People at home. Headlines. Council clear path for new restaurant at Simpson and Dodge. Fact. The vote was a victory for the 5th Ward Alderman Robin Simmons. Maybe. Fact. This vote was not a victory for many 5th Ward resident because of the way this deal was handled, from the beginning to the end, by the entire council members. All of you know, council members, how you did it and why you did it. In my opinion, it was a backdoor deal, a setup. You all had a plan already. You all, as council members, did not have the decency nor the respect to listen to the 5th Ward people as a whole. You listened to the high-rises, the chicken in the coop, the rodents, but you did not take the time to listen to the people of the 5th Ward. That's disrespect. You want us to respect you, you respect us in the 5th Ward. You did not want to hear from the people of the 5th Ward. You don't like President Trump and his crew? Your behavior, there's a trait there. Look in the mirror. Check yourselves out. Respect, decency means a lot to me and to us. Please don't forget that. We ask for respect, fairness. Also, the man who bought the building, he had it for sale for $300,000, $200,000 or $300,000. Mr. Katz got it for $70,000. We could have had that building in the 5th Ward if we knew it was $70,000. I would have put up my shack for that to build something there, okay? Where was the opportunity? Facts. This issue with the shish kebabs and the red beans and rice and chicken. Ask questions. Sean Jones, other media people. Ask questions. Get the full truth. Don't put down one side. Be fair. Listen to the truth on both sides, if that's the way you want to look at it. Disrespect to Mr. Katz, abuse verbally to Mr. Katz, ask questions.
15 more
You
seconds.
will hear and
15
see
more seconds.
disrespect of another kind. Sanctuary City, who is looking out for the undocumented people? Cook County, ICE is coming back, okay? They're arresting people. How will this city council protect the undocumented people in this city? How will you do it? The feds are coming in.
All right, we're at our time, Madeline. Thank you. Thank you.
We want the budget, $6.1 million. How did that happen? Tell us, how did it happen? What about the people who losing their jobs in this country? I mean, in this city, might leave here too. Think about it, council people. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt? We got Matt Rogers, and the last speaker is Kira Kelly.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Clerk Reed, and Assistant City Manager Lyons. My name is Matt Rogers. I live at 133 Clyde. I spoke at P&D about development, and I would have a request that the City Council look at how do our plans match our zoning. When developers come to town, are we presenting them with two different sets of ideas for what we're looking for? One that is written and codified in our zoning ordinance, and another that is a plan that doesn't really have any teeth behind it, but is kind of our ideal. I would ask this council to have somebody up here make the recommendation that we actually look at making those two documents work hand in hand, so that people, when they do want to develop in town, we do not waste their time. We give our city planners more idea as to what council is looking for, what we as a city are looking for, so that they can help you get questions before projects come to council. So that would be my request, and I would hope that somebody would make such a recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Kira Kelly?
I just wanted to thank the council for listening to the citizen group, allowing us the opportunity, along with experts and community members who've almost become experts, to really give you another look at this development. And I have to admit I was a little surprised at the vote, because it seemed like there was such heartfelt comment and by you all, and even some uncertainties about if the plan was there yet. So I think there's a lot on the line with this particular block, because it is one of the, for those of us who care about these kind of things, it's an important block that we have left that really feels like traditional Evanston. And I just want to say that the character and architecture is a key value for us. It's the key reason why many of us live here, and it attracts people. I think we love the people of Evanston, and I think that that's part of it. It's people with similar sensibilities that are attracted to this kind of community, and you're replacing special and character with sort of a conventional and generic. And when you're kind of chipping away our heart and soul here, and I just want to, let you know that could really impact the type of people who come, the type of businesses. We're wired to be in places we enjoy, and that's why a lot of people are here, because they enjoy what Evanston's all about. Also, the small businesses. I know that this should be a principle that should work, bring density to the small businesses, but if you really have talked to them, other than the restaurants, too bad my videos didn't work, but 30 years, 20 years, 15 years, and they do not want this. They're not against development on that block, neither are we. We just think it could be something more in the character and the feeling of Evanston, and they are worried about, they think they're good customers with disposable income. The Evanstonians are starting to get deterred from coming because of parking, because of the hassle, and those are the people with disposable income that they have relationships with. Even places I would think would welcome the new density, like hair salons or the cafes. The hair salon said, sometimes we get Kellogg students for a couple of years and then they move on. It's really our loyal customers, our Evanstonians, and we feel like they're being deterred. Also, a lot of them talked about Class A triple net spaces. They just don't understand why we're replacing affordable, older spaces that entrepreneurs can afford with these or Class A triple net, sorry, it's new to me, spaces that are not affordable for entrepreneurs, for the people that I showed you, who really seem like Evanston people that we want to hear, we want their shops. I feel like that's who we're about. We have to honor that. So
15 more seconds, Kara.
So anyway, also, it seems like we're a hot market. We have 5 proposals on the docket. Why can't we be true to our zoning? Why can't those go in the core development areas? And we can really not give up so much, because we are getting these benefits. We're getting some very small affordable housing units, but we're giving up a lot. And I don't think the balance is the benefits versus the cost are in line at all. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Kira. All right, and thank you everybody for public comment. That wraps up public comment. Let's go ahead into the rest of the agenda. We've got special orders of business, 2 special orders. The first one, SP1, is Resolution 84-R-17, designating the Evanston City Clerk as the city's Freedom of Information Act officer. This is for action.
Move approval.
Is there a second? Okay. Seeing no. Okay. Do you have something? Oh, your light's not working there, Devon. Okay. Do you have anything? This is for number 1. I thought you mentioned Alderman Wilson. This is.
Okay, so the only thing I had a concern about was we still have at a future meeting a conversation on the policies for the FOIA Act. So when I looked at this before, of course, the city clerk is directed to comply with all sections of FOIA, but I think we should probably also have in there and the City of Evanston's FOIA policy. And at this point, it's the old policy, and I realize, we might be a little bit ahead of the curve, but I would propose that we add in Section 2 all sections of FOIA and the City of Evanston's FOIA policy.
Okay. Is there a second to that amendment? Okay. Any discussion on it? If not, all in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's go ahead then, and do we have a motion on our Clerk Reed?
Mr. Schoolmaster mentioned today that we don't have an OMA designee either. I don't know if this is the policy to look at that, but I think also officially designating the clerk as the OMA designee makes sense as well.
Right. Unfortunately, that's not on the agenda, though, so we're going to have to take it up at a future meeting.
Yep.
Fine. Yep.
Good point. Thank you, though.
Right,
Okay.
so I move that we approve Resolution 84R17 as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, SB1 is passed 9-0 as amended. All right, SP2 is the fiscal year 2008 proposed capital budget and debt review. Assistant City Manager, would you like to take us through this? A lot of people were talking, some people were talking about budget and everything else.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Tonight we have a three-pronged approach to the presentation. Initially, Lara Biggs, City Engineer and Bureau Chief for Capital, will go through the detail of our capital plan, which, as she will note, is an $84 million capital plan. And then Karen Danzig-Lyons, the library director, has been patiently waiting to give a short presentation on potential library renovation, and that's been an item that was originally for discussion at an ANPW meeting, and it just, we would like to make sure that it gets discussed during capital. And then finally, I will have the dubious honor of walking the council through a little bit of a debt review for where the city stands after we talk about the capital programs themselves. Ms. Biggs, sorry, I thought I was going to lead off, but I'll let you take the.
Mayor, City Clerk, and honored members of the City Council, my name is Lara Biggs. I'm the City Engineer and the Bureau Chief of Capital Planning. And I'd like to talk tonight a little bit about our capital program that we have proposed for 2018. This is our agenda. Marty's pretty much already covered that. So to skip ahead, we do have a total proposed capital program of $84.3 million, which is up from $58.3 last year. This is actually skewed by 4 projects that are sort of one-off projects that are really high dollar values. So within street resurfacing, water main and sewer, we have the Sheridan Road project is ongoing and funded at $4 million for next year. We have a replacement of the 30-inch transmission main going to downtown, which is another $6 million. The water treatment and storage, we're beginning the construction late in the year, 2018, to go for the treated water storage facility, and that's budgeted at $12 million in 2018. And then in facilities, we have the Robert Crown project going into construction, and that is budgeted at $9 million for next year. This is a summary broken down by the different funding sources, of which there are many. I just want to highlight a few issues or items of interest. So what is noticeable here is that we have a big increase in the general obligation bond from $12.3 to $28.6 million between 2017 and 2018. I think Marty's going to have a little bit of a discussion about that, but again, that's being driven by the cost of a couple of projects. Other items of note about this, it does also include here, we have a big increase in this other funds category that we do, and a big portion of that is fundraising contribution for Robert Crown Center. And then we also have some money that is budgeted here, $0.7 million, for funds for projects from the waste transfer station. That includes environmental monitoring of the area and a few alley improvements in the adjacent spaces. So moving on to our next topic, I want to just talk about real quickly, we talked about this in a previous presentation, how are we determining these projects? You know, we are using a combination of assessment reports that are done by outside consultants as well as relying heavily on our in-house staff, not just the engineering staff, but also the maintenance staff for public works facilities, for parks and recreation, to try to come together and gather information about where some of our biggest needs and our maintenance problems are. And then, once again, we focus really on where our worst problems are. We're not really looking at trying to divide the money up by ward, but really looking more specifically at what our biggest issues are. And we really try to prioritize safety and keeping the lights on at all of these facilities, making sure that we can continue to deliver the services that the residents have come to expect. Although this CIP looks much larger in dollar value, it really is more about meeting our minimum needs. It's just that things were underfunded for a while, and so now we're playing a little bit of catch up. So I was going to go a little bit into each area and discuss. These are slides that we have seen before, but I've added in the 2018 budget areas. So what you're looking at is here's 2016 and 2017 funding, and then here's like an annual estimate of need that we developed over looking at a 5-year capital program. Once again, not a Cadillac program, more of a keep the lights on program. But what's interesting about street, water main, transportation projects is how many funding sources we have in this area of the capital program. We rely heavily on the water fund, the sewer fund, outside funding sources. CDBG comes into play here. TIFs generally spend more on streets and transportation than some of the other projects in the capital. And so the general obligation bond, $6.8 million, is a relatively small percentage of the 34.1 that we're looking to spend. And although this is a little higher than our 5-year estimate, that's because Sheridan Road and the transmission main project are in here. We are actually getting to a sustainable level of funding for the city in this area. There's a lot of specific projects. I'm not going to go through all of them. In fact, I didn't include all the projects in the list for any of the areas, but I did want to talk briefly through just a couple to highlight. Sheridan Road is ongoing. We're actually going to shift north to Lincoln Street to the Wilmette border for 2018. And the 2017 road, if you've had an opportunity to drive it, is fully open and is looking really good. Main Street, Maple to Hinman, this is in the business district here by Chicago Avenue. We are starting engineering. This is primarily a TIF-funded project, and so the engineering is expected to take 18 to 24 months, and then we're looking at moving into construction in 2020. The Main Street Commons project, which is at the west end of town, we are finishing engineering design in the early part of next year, and then we're looking to move into construction. That part will take place kind of over 2 construction seasons, primarily because of the long lead time for ordering traffic signals associated with that project. Howard Street, we've actually sort of divided this into 2 line items. There's the original scope of work that was applied for an STP grant and received an STP grant that is 70% funded by the grant with only a 30% match by the city. And then there's a second line item which would extend the limits of the area that we're doing the construction work in, 2 blocks on the west end from Hartree to Dodge, and 1 block on the east end from Custer to Clyde, and also include lighting improvements along the entire length. This would unfortunately be wholly funded by the city, but if approved, we would move forward with that. We have our normal street resurfacing program that we do and our normal water main program. Here is the downtown transmission main for that basically takes the water from the treatment plant down across on Lincoln Street, down Sherman, kind of jogs over on Emerson, and then down Benson. A 30-inch main, which has already had a couple breaks on it, were caught very early. But if it were not caught early, would be a really catastrophic problem, which is why we want to sort of preemptively replace this main or rehabilitate it. And then we also have some water and sewer projects. One of the most fun ones is that this Emerson Street water meter vault is the connection point for the Morton Grove Niles wholesale water contract, and so it's very exciting to see that moving forward. We are planning on doing that construction in 2018. That actually is sort of the street and water main projects. I was going to move on to other transportation projects. If you have any questions, though, this would be a so far. Okay. So in other transportation projects, we have the Central Street bridges moving forward, and we should be going into our final design for construction in 2019. The traffic signals at Emerson for Maple, Elgin, Benson, Dodge, there were 4, 1 at Dodge and 3 at the other end. We applied for a CMAQ grant for that, which we did not receive. Unfortunately, these signals are so old that they are very difficult to find replacement parts for, and so we would propose just finishing the design up and moving ahead with construction in 2019. And then the alley paving projects. We're continuing our street patching program at $600,000 a year, and then the James Park North lot, which would install the parking lot at the north side, northwest corner of James Park, is also proposed for construction in early spring. So that sort of concludes that piece of the street and transportation. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we shall move on to parks. So parks is an area where we probably have while it looks like the funding is catching up with our annual estimate of need, that's actually because we carried over $3.5 million for Fountain Square. This is the one area of the CIP where I think we're not really making a lot of progress on trying to meet the needs that we have. Here are some projects that we have highlighted for next year. The Beck Park expansion, we're in negotiations with MWRD on a lease for the part of the Shore School site that's just north of Church Street along the canal. And this initial funding of $400,000 is a single project that would demolish the existing building and extend the bike path and just basically plant grass. And then the 2019 funding would just be a completely separate project if we decided to move forward with it, which would be to add amenities to that section of the park. And there's been different ideas floated about splash parks or additional soccer fields or various things, but those would be sort of up for public comment and debate once we negotiate the lease with MWRD, which we're still in the process of. The Church Street Harbor project has been ongoing and will move into construction. Garden Park, our worst weighted park, is proposed to start engineering and design so that we can move into construction in 2019. And the James Park field lighting would have us install athletic lighting on fields already in James Park so that we could relocate some of our night leagues that are currently playing at Robert Crown to James Park as Robert Crown goes into construction. Moving on to facilities, we have here is where we're actually starting to catch up with some of our facilities issues, although we have a lot of outside funds, it so happens this year, that are contributing to our spending, which is great. So, and in fact, I was saying this is the numbers with Crown, but if we look at the numbers without Crown, we would propose that we need to be spending at least $8 million a year, and we're proposing 8.2. So we are really trying to make headway. We have a lot of catch up to do in facilities. So the first one, the animal shelter, this was a building that we did an assessment on this year, And I will say that the animal shelter is nearing the end of its useful life, and there are limited options for fixing some of its major problems because it is a very small building and it wasn't originally designed for the purpose it's being used for. So for that reason, we are proposing to do a study to figure out what the animal shelter needs are and what our potential options are for addressing it, at which point we can have a discussion about how to deal with that.
I'm sorry, Laura. We have Alderman Rainey has a question or comment.
Did you just say the animal shelter wasn't built to be an animal shelter?
It was not built to house animals indefinitely. It was not built as a no-kill shelter. It was built to house animals, but not in the way it's being used, which is an improvement. But it brings with its problems as we try to house more and more animals there for an extended period of time.
Okay.
And this is no comment on the staff that is volunteering at the animal shelter. They're wonderful. But
I'm not talking about staff.
yeah. But the building itself has some serious issues.
Alderman Fisk.
Laura, could you, I'd like to hear from the folks at the animal shelter, the Animal Control Board people.
Sure.
As to what types of fundraising they could do. I understand
Absolutely.
that when, that we lost a significant amount of money when the former group moved out, and what the estimate for doing their part might be, the current animal group that's in there.
Yes, absolutely.
They're doing a wonderful job.
I would agree.
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Fisk, members of council. Alderman Fisk, do you have a timeline for that? Is that something that we can do during 2018? I know that they will not have a quick response on something as opposed to the team trying to have a budget memo in 3 weeks. I don't think that's realistic, so it would be a longer term.
Right. Just if we could get some sense that there is fundraising ongoing, I think would be helpful.
All right, we will come back with a timeline.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alderman Braithwaite?
No, I was just going to say we meet again in January, and I can make sure that that is a agenda topic and come back and report either to full council or put it in a memo.
Okay. Chandler has HVAC and electrical issues, but we've been moving forward with the design, and this is actually 2 projects scheduled over 2 years. And then Civic Center, this building also has some infrastructure issues as building systems are aging and not able to just be repaired anymore. And so sort of the first 2 that we're addressing is looking at what to do about the HVAC and the heating, and then the elevators are in disrepair quite a bit. They've been out of service on and off, and we keep having repair costs for those, so to replace the elevators or upgrade them. Crown Center is moving forward into preparing construction documents. The Ecology Center is a project where the crawl space where the water service and other utilities come in it's not heated or improved, and so we've been having issues long-term with managing that. Fleetwood Jourdain is moving forward with the HVAC and electrical, and a lot of the work will occur in 2018. And then we have the redevelopment of the space for the Howard Street Theater.
Laura, can you go back to the prior slide? So on Crown, trying to reconcile like an overall number that I've heard spoken here at this council meeting, and I see you've got 9.1 for 2018, then you just dropped to 2 for 19, and then, well, it looks like you ended the 19 with 9.25. So could you just explain what's going on with Crown?
I believe that is a typo, that it is 20 million in 2019, and that it should say 2020, that I just have a typo for the third column.
And then, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I would also point out it's not all GO bond
It is
funding. So that should say a combination of GO bonds / fundraising, and in some cases where the general obligation bonds would be abated as well, not just all bonds to be paid out of property taxes, we can make the correction, and that will be then, as it's posted on the website, will be in a corrected form.
Yes. My apologies for that. The service center, the first project is to address the structural issues that we've been having at the service center. There's also a separate project to do some masonry repairs where water is leaking into the building. And then we have two projects at Sherman Avenue Garage that are linked. One, the lighting itself is, we are unable to any longer procure the bulbs, so we're basically changing out entire lamps when we have a bulb go out. And so this would be upgrading it to a new LED system, which also would have a great payback and energy efficiency, since that's a revenue-generating building. Those kinds of projects usually have a payback that's measured in just a few years. The paint itself is starting to peel off, particularly in the lower levels, and when we remove the paint, that may impact how the lighting needs to be distributed. And so, at least for the first project, we wanted to be able to do them in conjunction to make sure we were providing adequate lighting levels at the garages. So that is my facilities presentation. Are there any other questions on facilities projects? Okay. Then we get to water billing, treatment, and storage. I've just shortened this to a few projects. The 3642 intake is older, and it's very difficult to televise these intakes. They go about a mile out into the lake, and they generally only have one hatch, somewhere between a third to a halfway out, depending on the intake. And for that reason, we don't entirely know what goes on inside them, but we can tell that we don't get nearly the flow of water through them that we probably should. So based on looking from the ends and in the access hatch where we can look, we can see that there is a lot of siltation that's happened into the intake, and basically it's probably undersized, that if we want to take our largest intake out of service and be at 108 million gallons per day, that could be a challenge. We're not usually at 108 million gallons a day, so it hasn't really come up, but we would like to address this since that intake is clearly deteriorating and not doing its full duty. And it is, sections of it are different in age, but it is 80 to 100 years old.
Mr. Mayor, one of the questions that was raised earlier in the evening was discussion regarding, does the city get paid for these when we're replacing this type of infrastructure? So the intake would be a clear example of something that is paid for by all of our partners, along with Evanston residents. And what we haven't really talked a lot about is the manner. So when we do this, the water fund is listed as the funding source, but we would issue IEPA bonds at a very low interest rate of 2%. And then when those assets are brought online, they are then put into the calculation for the rates that all of our partners pay. So the assets are brought online, our partners pay for them over time, just in the manner of a mortgage. So in some cases, we would like to go a little bit longer than the 20 years, but IEPA only goes 20 years, and it's at a 2% or under rate, and so that's been very favorable. So when it comes to how do we get paid for this, we do put it into the rate according to the asset life, and all of our partners do pay for that. In this case, including Northwest Water Commission for the intakes, correct? Because it's part of the plant.
Alderman Rainey.
And we also talked tonight about the chargeback to the water users, not the Northwest Water Commission, but chargeback to the users for the over $500,000 for surveying the distribution pipes, the 3 pipes on our bills list tonight. And not on a purchase we're making tonight for Pure
Yes, what Alderman Rainey is referring to is that some of our customers also pay for the distribution system. So it's not just the plant, depending on where the pipes are. Our new customers, Morton Grove and Niles, they're already aware of this, that they would pay for this, but also for keeping up those large mains that will actually service them. We provided this to them during our negotiations process, that they would be responsible for helping us maintain those assets into the future.
Those pipes go from where that water comes in to their distribution. But also, I was going to ask you, what about zebra mussels? Are they out there anymore?
They are. And
they could be causing some.
So there are actually two types of mussels. There were zebra mussels that were here in the 1980s, and they've more lately been pushed out of the way by quagga mussels. So we actually see much more of a quagga mussel problem. And the quagga mussels, which basically do the same thing, they attach to the intakes as they age. They're about the size of your thumbnail. They attach there and they feed by having water rush past them and filtering everything out, but then they die and more build on top of them. So it makes a very rough surface and really reduces the amount of water we can get in just because of friction. So we still have that issue. We feed a chlorine solution out to the end of the intakes to encourage them to just not colonize our intakes and go somewhere else. And that's been pretty effective, but we actually don't have an operating chlorine feed system to the 3642-inch intake. So we knew that there were issues with capacity, so when we did some repairs a few years ago, we elected not to repair it for the 3642-inch intake because we knew that there was a longer-term problem. But I'm sure that's adding to the reason why we cannot get water in very easily.
So Laura, I knew, I've been trying to pay more and more attention to water and what's going on. I knew that we were going to replace the water storage treatment, not the treatment, but the water storage tank, and that was going to be around $20 million. I guess I'm surprised, right? I never clued in that we were going to replace the pipes that go a mile out to the lake, these intake ones that you were talking about, and those are actually more than the storage tank at 26 million rounded up, right?
Yes.
Do we have to do, again, I'm just looking at all the overall debt and everything that we have here. Do we have to do that now? Is that timely because of customers that we're taking on, that we have to improve the intake and the amount of water that we're bringing into our plant, and those new pipes will only allow us to do that?
It's timely, so it was intended to be in roughly this time frame. We've talked a lot about the treated water storage because it was a more immediate need. It's possible to delay this project, but because of the way the contracts are structured, the customers are completely aware that this is an intended project, and they've agreed to it, and it would be better in terms of the payback if we could get it done sooner, actually. The customers would share more immediately in the cost.
And I would also, we can come back to the council to go through this specifically. One of the requests was an indexed rate listing for several of our revenues, so we would go back and have the water and sewer rates projected out into the future. I think Alderman Nguyen at one of our meetings referenced that. And our goal is still that any increase in the water rate will be offset by a decrease in the sewer rate over the next several years. So our goal is to get ourselves on a very solid footing with water without an increase to the residents, that we will continue to flip the water and sewer rates as we continue to improve our capital situation. And then again, all of these would be also covered by our customers outside of Evanston as well. So what I'm trying to get to is we're not proposing an increase in cost necessarily to Evanston residents in the combined water sewer rate as a part of these capital improvements. And I got a good nod from the Public Works Agency Director, which I really needed. Thank you.
Our laboratory is a little bit undersized for the types of tests that we run, and so we are proposing to expand that. And I will also add that a bigger problem with our laboratory is that the HVAC is not appropriate for it. So we need to do an HVAC improvement where the laboratory essentially goes on an isolated HVAC system. This is really important for certified laboratories. They have to maintain a very specific temperature and humidity in order to stay certified, and it's been kind of a challenge. And so when we do that, because we are having the space issue within our laboratory, we are also looking to expand it slightly. And then the treated water storage project.
Excuse me, Laura, for
Sure.
1 second. Alderman Sufferton?
Hey, Laura, we have a lot of HVAC issues throughout the city.
Yes.
Are we setting ourselves up for these all being on the same life cycle, and whoever are in these chairs, however many years from now, are going to have to do these all at once as well?
Hopefully not. But there is a truth to the fact that HVAC only has a certain life cycle, and we have way exceeded the life cycles of all the HVAC, not all of them, but many of them. So if you were to look at the long-term prospects, once we complete Fleetwood Jourdain, and then we worry about Chandler, and then the noise HVAC is also in bad shape, and then Levy Center is not in as bad shape, but it's coming due for having some rehab work also. So there is sort of a recurring theme here that over the next many years, we're going to be doing HVAC projects. It is sort of how we got here, but I believe because of the long time it takes to design and then build them, you're not going to see multiple ones in each year, except for the fact that Fleetwood Jourdain got delayed because of an issue when we initially bid it. So it should have been completed this year, and then we would move to, actually Chandler is primarily electrical work next year. Those have a longer life cycle than HVAC, and then the HVAC part is mostly in the follow-on year. There's only one of the rooftop units that is really failing at Chandler immediately. So we are trying to space it a little bit. It just waited so long that we can only space it so much.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, so we have a couple of issues we would like to discuss, but actually the Public Works Director is going to take over the presentation at this point.
Good evening. There's 2 slides that I'd like to talk about, and as council's aware, we implemented a complete and green street policy, and then as we work on the street, our thoughts are to address all the sidewalk issues on that street that's being resurfaced. There's several proposals as the way to go in the future. The first one we have 2 funding sources for streets, MFT and then the capital program and along with water funds. If we were going to replace sidewalks on those same streets, chances are we would have to pave one less street funded by each funding source. Given the same dollars, you add those sidewalk work, you'd have to take away a street. So it'd probably be 2 streets that wouldn't get funded for new asphalt and curb work because we'd have to take some of the funds and use that to replace a sidewalk. Other things that we don't really like about that is if we're going to do the funding with our own city money, our engineers would go out and identify which concrete slabs we would propose to replace, and then I think we get phone calls from all the residents that say, well, you're replacing 7 of the 9 in front of my house, why can't you do the other 2? Look, there's a little crack in this one here, can't you replace it? And then the carriage walks that run between the sidewalk and the curb are not the city's responsibility, and they're the homeowners. But if we go ahead and we replace the main sidewalk, then they're going to say, well, you have to replace this too. And sometimes you actually have to because you change the grade a little bit, and you would have to do that. So I think this would be just a snowball effect if we tried to do it using city funds. And that's why I would more recommend approach B, which is implement a mandatory 50-50 program on the streets that are being resurfaced, and therefore, I'm sorry? For the sidewalks, right, a 50-50. I'm sorry. Take that back. On the streets that we're resurfacing, to replace the sidewalks on those streets, the city staff would evaluate them, and then if the sidewalks are bad we currently have a 50/50 sidewalk program, but on those streets, we would tell the residents that you must participate in that program so we can replace the streets. Then if they want to replace the carriage walks, as it is with our current program, they would be responsible to pay 100% of those. We also feel that we could look at income qualifying. So if residents already are getting food at the schools and they can demonstrate that they're doing that, or if they're senior citizen, then we would replace their sidewalks at 100% of the city cost. But everybody else that was not income qualified would have to pay their percentage. Alternatively, we could not adhere to the complete and green street policy and just keep on going the way we're doing. But this is something that we would like direction from the city council as to how they would like us to proceed on this.
Okay, Dave, Alderman Fleming has a comment.
So I would just say I don't like this. I appreciate your thoughtfulness, because you will have people who complain that you didn't replace theirs, or how you decided. However, I just have no idea how we would implement a mandatory 50/50. Even with the income qualifier and doing some for free or discount, I just don't see. I hear a lot from people in my community about their sidewalks and a lot of frustration with the sidewalk repair program now. And so to then try to say that they have to replace them because maybe they fall somewhere in that income bracket where they don't qualify, whatever our income qualifier is for, but they also don't have the money to replace them. So I just think it would be really hard to implement B. Plus, I think people would, given our tax rate, even though we understand that the city doesn't get that money, would be very hard to ask them, if they'll again back to that nickel and dime situation. So my question is, if we went to implement the actual policy we have, which is when we resurface a street, we actually redo the squares of sidewalk that need to be redone, would that take us to A, where we'd only do 1 or 2 streets a year based on the cost yours?
We would reduce the number of streets we do by one street.
Of how many, Dave?
So under MFT, I think we're planning on 5 streets this year.
No, it's more like 8 streets.
8 streets on MFT, so we would only get 7 done.
So we would do 7, and we would
Instead of
replace
8.
the sidewalk
On those
squares
7.
that need to be replaced.
Correct. On
So
those 7.
I would vote then, if we're voting, or I say that I would like to stick to A and actually implement the complete streets policy that we have, and cut back on a 1 or 2 streets, because I think that residents, even if your street's not done that year, you would appreciate that when your street is done, you would get also a new sidewalk if needed. And then we can obviously keep our 50/50, I'm assuming. And if someone doesn't want, can't wait or what have you, they can go ahead and replace their sidewalk at their own 50/50 cost.
And that's what we're looking for is direction. The one thing I guess I want to, if we go with A and somebody on the block just this year paid for the 50/50 sidewalk program, and next year we pave the street and we replace everybody else's sidewalk for free, then they're going to say, well, can I get a reimbursement? And how long back do we do that? Is it 1 year? Is it 5 years? How do we, I'm not
I think we don't do that because we say we didn't have the policy then.
Okay.
I mean, I
Then-
think that's part of, I would say, my communication with people in my ward is to say we have this policy now. I mean, there's a lot of things that we might do now or have done in the past that we're not going to go back and reimburse people for.
Okay. Thank you, Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk.
Boy, I don't want to get those phone calls. I can hear them now. Ring, yeah, that's right. Okay, so I think our streets are a priority. I mean, we're working very hard to keep bicyclists on the streets. We need to pave as many streets as we can each year. And so I would just propose that we stay with the program that we've got, replace squares of sidewalk as needed, and pave as many streets as we can.
Alderman Rainey.
If you have a broken sidewalk in front of your house, can property standards cite you to force you to have it fixed?
There is a current ordinance that says the Director of Public Works can require property owners to replace the sidewalks in a manner that they see fit. And that would be totally on the homeowners So there is a current city code to that effect.
And Dave, how many
Talking
times
about-
have you done that?
To my knowledge, we have never done that.
And I'm not talking about just a little crack or a little bump. I'm talking, because on my street, there are a couple of sidewalk squares that are really dreadful. And
Right, and our current practice is to identify those and ask the property
Very
owner
nicely,
to
yeah.
participate in the 50/50 program. If it's a severe trip hazard, we'll wind up going out and putting an asphalt
not
patch
anymore,
in.
not anymore. Mr. Mayworm has come up with a brand-new system where we put very nice concrete. You almost don't even know it's been done. Doesn't look nasty and that big chunk of tar-looking stuff.
When did they start that?
Yep. Nope, he's got a whole new program.
All right, Dave, can you keep
moving.
keep us
Okay.
moving?
And then, so that's on that, and the next item I'd like to bring up to people is the 50/50 alley program. And I mentioned this twice, I think in 2016. We have a long list of projects to be completed, and the Board of Local Improvements have already accepted petitions that are using up the funding that we currently have, 250 put in from the CIP and another 250,000 anticipated from the adjacent properties. So in 2018, we're going to do an alley. In 2019, we're going to do an alley. In 2020, we're going to do one alley. And that is using up all the funding sources that we have. And in addition to that, then we have 24 property or alleys that people have come in and asked to get a petition, but we're not issuing petitions yet because we're already set up through 2020. And if they go out and they get the petition, they bring it back in. We couldn't do it until 2021, and are the same residents still going to be there 4 years out? So we were going to wait until closer to 2020 until we start issuing the petition. But we're only going to issue out the first 5 that are on the waiting list, because if they come back and 2 of them want to do it, well, then we're already set for 2021 and 2022. And so, it's a very long process to do this. And so we're talking about, can we try to make a city standard where if we get easement fees in from anybody that's not actually budgeted in the budget, can that be used towards alley projects? We were successful in getting some of that funding towards alley projects in 2016. The solid waste fund would be another good source, in that our own garbage trucks that go through the alleys on a daily basis would have less wear and tear if they're going down a concrete alley. However, right now, the solid waste fund is in a negative balance, so that's not something that we want to try to address right now.
Dave, Alderman Fisk.
Dave, if residents apply for 100% resident-funded alley improvements, do they need to go through the petition process?
They would have to go through the petition process, and at least 51% of the adjoining property owners would have to agree, because then it's going to be much more expensive for all the property owners if they're paying for it 100%. So yes, it would still go through the same special assessment process, and 51% of the abutting property owners would have to agree, and then we could start the special assessment.
And how long would that take to do?
We could, if it's okay with the council, because nothing's written in the ordinance right now. This 50/50 share of the alley costs was started in the early 1990s. Prior to that, all alley improvement was 100% on the property owners. In the 90s, it was decided that we want to encourage the paving of the alleys, and that's when they came up with the 50/50 program. During the economic turndown, we hardly had anybody that was putting in applications because nobody wanted to spend the money. But with the unique rainstorms that we're getting, the very intense rainstorms, and I guess the economy's better, we have this long list of property requests for special assessment alleys. So we could notify all the 24 that are on the waiting list now and say, if you want a petition that's for 100%, where the homeowners pay it, we could get that out right away.
And are all the alleys concrete?
All the alleys, well, we would recommend all concrete alleys except for where we know that we have good porous ground below them, and then we would recommend a green alley, a porous alley, porous pavement.
Go on, Dave.
And that's really, and the other thing that I'll come back, again, the petitions that we received are on a 50-50 split. As we get into 2021, we may want to look at if the city still wants to participate, instead of 50-50, make it 25-75 or 30-70. We could stretch our dollars much more. If we put $250,000 in, we're only paying for 25% of it. We could do $1 million worth of work rather than $500,000 worth of work. So those are the items I want to bring up.
And we can come back to the council before we go back out on the next round with alley improvements, if this is something to look at for 2018. It would be, because the Board of Local Improvement meets monthly, and we could come up with cost estimates, especially given what we already know for 3 or 4 that could be designed, and then we would have cost estimates. And one final thing is we are now charging a much lower interest rate, closer to 2 to 3%, and for decades we had a 7.5% interest on the resident share. So it is very cost effective as far as spreading this out over 10 years for a resident. Oh, Karen. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I would like to then have Karen Danzig-Lyons go through, and her presentation is much more uplifting. We've got a lot of great pictures of some concepts, so a little bit more, a great discussion on what a new library could look like. So, Director.
Good evening, Mayor Haggerty, Acting City Manager Lyons, members of the council, Clerk Reed, Karen Danzig-Lyons, your library director. I am delighted to be here with you this evening to share some concepts around our main library renovation that's proposed. Our main library opened 23 years ago, and when we opened, our business model was very different. Our community requirements were very different. Our expectations were very different. And what we want to propose for your consideration is a renovation and a systems improvement that will not move us from scarcity to abundance, but really move us from a position of scarcity to adequacy. Every day we turn away members of the community groups, businesses who want to use our space. Alderman Fisk knows how difficult it is to find room on our schedule for her ward meetings. And that happens every single day, where we turn people away who could use the library and use it well. We've been looking at this proposed renovation for some time. We've done some of the envelope work to make it watertight and secure, but things like electricity and internet connections and space needs really have not been looked at in some time. We're busy. We get over 1,600 people through a day, and those are babies and seniors and businessmen and everyone in between. And so our new plan is really designed to meet the needs now and in the future. We're going to be turning in our proposals some back office spaces and some closed spaces into public spaces, consolidating our staff more so on the 4th floor, creating some specialty spaces that have been identified as needs, spaces for nursing mothers, a space to eat on the 1st floor, a computer lab that we would use to expand our training, and they would be open, the computers would be available when we're not training, create comfortable seating areas, create many more community spaces. We found in our analysis, if you have more than 35 people that want to use our space for a meeting, right now you must use our main community room because the other spaces aren't large enough. So in this proposal, we'll create many more medium-sized and a couple more large spaces to accommodate the needs. Sometimes these 3D models are difficult, and I welcome the opportunity to meet with you individually and go into great granular detail in these plans, but just some of the highlights would be in the images ahead. So you would come into the main library, you'd have our concierge desk. On the right is the circulation area where we would implement patron pickup of holds. We would have DVD vending machines on the 1st floor, so you don't have to search through the building. You can just come in, check them out. We would also have on the left side, along with our staff to help, others self-check. So this is another view looking towards the door on the first floor. This is the entry into the children's area. If you've been in our lobby, you know that right now it's a very wide entrance, and the babies are fast. And so this would not only guide you into the area, but would help us contain toddlers who every day find their way up and down the stairs, but also sometimes make it close to the front door. We'd create a permanent book sale area and blend that with some cafe space. Right now, if you want to feed your toddler or you need to eat because of medication, you sit near the new books. The new books. This would be an intentional space with seating where you are welcome to sit, and we would also have some high-quality vending machines if you didn't bring your food. This shows a more collaborative furniture arrangement in the children's area, so more and more children work together on computers to do their research. This would help that. This would also create, so this is looking back towards the entrance to the eating area. But right now we need some more programming space with walls. And so in the art garden, which is in the back, you'll see in this design, that would have glass walls. We would also create a story and another program space that teachers and classrooms could book and have some learning time together in a more confined space that would also mitigate the noise. Our second floor would be the place where you come to consume. So if you're looking to check out books, looking to check out materials, this is where you would come on the second floor. We would eliminate those large desks at the top of the stairs. You would come off the elevators or the stairs and be greeted with a convenient, comfortable seating space. We would have 2 service desks. You see one there on the right side. So staff would be scattered through the floor and much more easily accessible. They'd also be up moving around a lot more. This is the third floor. This really will be an exciting area where you will create. This is the space where you would come to create. We would have many more meeting rooms, study rooms, different size rooms equipped to support our businesses. I like to say if you've outgrown your kitchen table but you can't pay rent yet, come to the library, and we have many small businesses that are running their businesses and having meetings in the library. This would provide many more spaces for them to do so. Wherever possible, we are reusing our furniture. To the left there through the arches, you see our 24 computer lab, again, with the glass walls that would tilt, so when we're not providing classes, again, at no charge, we don't charge fees for these classes, but when we're not having a classroom, then those computers would be available for our residents of all ages, primarily adult residents. And there's another information desk. They're conveniently located to assist. This is the teen space. Our teen space is busy all the time. The furniture is wearing out. The technology is really wearing out. And so we'd create more seating and collaboration spaces for the teens, but we would create 2 more programming spaces. This is another view within the loft. But we would create a maker space, and we would also create another program space. So we could have learning going on in the loft and creating going on in the maker space and other programs for teens or other ages in the program space. We don't anticipate closing the library, but parts of the library over the 18-month construction project would be unavailable as we move the work around the library. Again, we feel that by consolidating the staff up on the 4th floor, most of the staff creating more public spaces, more learning spaces, creating opportunities for residents to come together in different combinations and in different size groups, we're going to be meeting the needs that we have now and the needs that we anticipate. I'm bringing this to you for your consideration at this time of plan development, not only because we're at a point where we really seriously need to consider this, but the GO bonds that were issued to construct the building are being retired. So at the time when that old debt is being retired, it just made sense in my mind to bring for your consideration this project that would be funded through GO bonds. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Are there any questions?
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I recognize the hour, so I'm going to go through a few things very quickly and then potentially suggest a more in-depth discussion for funding at a later date. But I do want this information to be out there so that the council has it and can ask questions. It can be a part of your budget deliberations over the next month and a half, but hopefully it'll provide a little bit of a framework to look at our overall capital. So we're going to hit types of debt, city policy, total level, and future debt. You know that we do GO debt. We also, depending on how we're paying for it, matters. So abated debt means that we're using water funds, but we issued it as general obligation to get a lower rate, or the TIF is paying for it. We issue general obligation because we want the lowest rate possible. Unabated means that it goes to the county and the county levies on our behalf. So you won't see that in our levy that we do later in another month and a half. Illinois Environmental Protection Agency debt, this is a revolving loan fund. We have been a very strong user of this program, and it has saved us millions, literally, in interest. More than that, tens of millions when we talk about the sewer, that program replacing all of those sewers done at almost half our GO debt rate. So it's an incredible program, and we will continue to use it. So line of credit, we just did this with our TIF financing for Chicago, Maine, and Dempster Dodge, and now we're just retiring those. I'm having a meeting next week with First Bank and Trust to give them the dollars from our general obligation bond to retire those lines of credit, and then we'll start again in Howard Ridge with a line of credit, and as soon as that project is done, meaning the two projects, the theater and the Chicago Avenue projects, those will then go out into longer-term debt. In this case, only about 8 or 9 year debt until the Chicago Ridge TIF retires. But by doing it this way, we pay much lower interest costs on the line of credit than we do otherwise. Pension debt, I'm not going to go into that too much. OPEB debt, we've also talked about that. That's our debt for health insurance. Ours is nominal compared to other communities that might actually pay for retiree health care. And when they do, theirs can be over $100 million in debt. Ours is $14 million for our OPEB debt. And then other claims payable. Again, I don't want to talk about that tonight. I do want to focus on the city has a statutory debt limit by local ordinance, $113 million. It was changed in 2012 from $90 million, and we are at $111.5 million. So, but we do not have a statutory limit, and as I noted here, here's other limits that might be constrain the city. If we had a $50 million line of credit, I don't think First Bank and Trust would want to give us 2% interest. So the fact that we use it wisely helps keep our rates very low.
Marty, so the $113 million, that was an ordinance that was passed by a prior council that set that debt limit?
It is actually not even by ordinance. If you look at the budget document that is approved every year by council, part of the city policies listed in that document list what we want for our fund reserves and what we have for a debt policy. So it is just promulgated every year in the city's budget. When you adopt that by resolution, you in effect adopt the debt limit. So that's something that we would change either in this budget or as a budget amendment and change the policy therein. There is no reason that the city couldn't also just do it by resolution or even by ordinance. That is totally the will of this council, how we establish our debt limit, and or even if we have one. There are other communities that are home rule communities that do not have this. They have no limit, and they use the tax levy as their governing factor because this amount produces about an $11 million tax levy that is unabated, and that's really where that's really what holds the line for us.
Is there a best practice debt ratio?
Yes, there is, and we haven't re-upped that analysis, but debt limits can be done by personal income, how much can your residents afford based on how much they make, Or like a mortgage, how much is the value of the community? If you're going to do a general obligation bond and have it based on taxes, then you look at the value of the community. Evanston is valued at $2.7 billion, and we were as high as $3.3 billion and as low as $2.1 billion in the last 10 years. So that's a hard one to plan long-term, but we can provide that. We'll do that as a future.
I think that might be a helpful budget memo in terms of the debt limit so people can really understand. Yes, Alderman Rainey.
For Marty, don't Fitch and Moody's talk about this and our ability to deal with these issues, Marty?
Yes, they do, and they are happy with, when you read a Fitch statement, they'll say, as a home rule community, Evanston has no debt limit, but has its own. So they applaud us for doing that, and we also have a great history of paying our debt on time always. So we only have one issue recently in the last 10 years where we extended any debt, and that was our sewer debt, and it had nothing to do with GO debt being extended beyond 20 years. And some communities have done that, especially Chicago or the state, borrowing to pay off borrowing. And the city does not do that.
One other thing, on the IEPA loans, we never do a project that we apply for an IEPA loan until we get notice that we've been awarded the loan, right?
I think that's a correct assessment.
Unless
yes.
it's an emergency.
No, we have not let any projects unless we know that we have the IEPA loan approved. And we do a design so that IEPA can approve, but then we bid out after that.
But sometimes we sit with the project on the books until we get the loan.
So here's the what we're facing in the short term is an estimate looking at Crown with a 2018-19, because the debt won't all be issued in the near term. Some will be in 2019, but that takes us to 121, and then the library renovation, which presently is listed in, for the most part, in 18, but that's phasing is our own decision. But we still go to 133 million. And we just want to make sure that the council is aware of that. And I'm putting the hard part up front. Let's talk a little bit about our total debt right after this so you get a handle on it. Our debt is $225 million for pension and OPEB debt. And IEPA debt, that number, $45 million, used to be $195 million. We have paid down an awful lot of debt. It might be a little bit less than 195, but I think around 190 was our number. Then you go to our GO debt, unabated, as I just pointed out, and then abated debt where we're paying it out of TIF funds or water funds or other area where we chose to do general obligation debt and pay from other sources. So, and then our miscellaneous, that line of credit will expunge shortly with the refinancing. But our total debt is $440 million. You think, how did we get there? It has vacillated between that amount over the last 4 to 5 years. And that's including, we took a hit on the pensions just this last time around when we changed our mortality tables, and that gave us more unfunded liability. But let's talk about this historically. $440 million, and that's what it was made of. 10 years ago, $328 million, but no pension debt. So you see that we've gone from $298 million of fixed capital debt down to $192 million. We're doing what we can to reduce our fixed capital debt, but when your pension debt goes from $13 million to $225, it is just a different environment. And Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, Alderman Wilson.
Okay, and just I guess for clarification, it's more a function of that we now have a real number as opposed to a number that wasn't real 10 years ago, right? I mean, so I want it clear to the public that it's not that we didn't pay the pension for 10 years. It's that we're looking at it might not be a completely real number, but it's a more real number than that 13 million.
And I had a director earlier today tell me, Marty, can you go ahead and put in there that 10 years ago it was really 528 million, not 328 million, because of that we weren't showing pension debt back in that time frame? Or how would we change the view? And remember, our pension debt is a function of current economic environments. If we were earning 7 or 8% on investments, then that pension debt could be half that. But our fixed debt would still be what it is because we had chosen to issue bonds. So it is. There are two different animals on that screen when you have pension debt next to fixed capital debt.
Right, and I think it's notable that we've gone from between the fixed and the other, drop that down almost $100 million.
Yes.
So that's paying actual bills down $100 million.
And I think what our city engineer has told us is that's really important, but we may need to try and do something with our fixed assets to try and get them in better repair. So what the mayor asked for, we will work on, and that is what's the right amount.
Right. Okay, thank you.
One of the things, though, short term is that we'll only be retiring about 9 to 10 million, and there's, besides Robert Crown and the library, there's $12 million approximately of ongoing capital, and we should consider whether or not, as we review the CIP this year, slimming that down by $2 to $3 million. And staff can provide some guidance on that, what could be deferred, but right now that's what we're looking at as we go forward with the deliberations over the next month. And I'm not asking for direction at 11:30 at night on something like that.
We were all ready to give it to you. Okay.
We do have other information regarding our other funds, and we always get to general fund, capital fund, and run out of gas. And so in this presentation, there's other information about our TIFs, where they stand, our parking, water, sewer, solid waste. These are all a part of the budget document, but for those who don't want to wade through, they can get a look at this by going through this presentation and call me with any questions regarding these other funds. And again, our smaller funds, but very important to us, are listed here, and we've already talked a little bit about library. So I think if there's any, and we have independent committees that handle CDBG, and there's a lot of oversight on our housing and rehabilitation. I knew it. I fixed that rehabilitation twice, and I still didn't spell it right. My apologies. I'll fix that. So I'll get off of that slide so people can't see that I don't know how to spell rehabilitation. That was me entering that. So I'd be happy to take any questions and appreciate the council's patience and attention at this late hour.
I think as long as the numbers are right, Marty, that's what we care most about.
Yes, we will. We have that one issue on the Crown. We'll fix that. And I noted one year that was wrong, and we'll fix that, and this will be posted.
Terrific. And if we can also, on Mr. Stoneback's presentation, just make it clear that we were talking about sidewalks and not roads, as Alderman Fisk pointed out.
Yes.
Alderman Fleming.
You just said it, Marty, but this is going to be posted on the website under the budget.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on capital? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on. Thank you very much, city staff, for that in-depth presentation. All right, so we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Alderman Rainey, if you could take us through M1 through A2, and then we're going to call a vote, and then we'll do A2 separately for a vote.
Do we need to do anything with the special orders?
We took action on SP1, and SP2 is just for discussion. So I think we're all set there.
How about we move approval of the council minutes of
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I do also, Alderman Rainey, if you recall, how we split out the bills list also. So we did that so that part of the bills list could stay on consent. So, okay.
Correct. Yep, we got that. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move approval, this is the consent agenda. I'll move approval of the council minutes of October 16. The AMPW agenda is as follows. Let me get down here. Let's see, payroll. Payroll through October 1, 2017 in the amount of $2,689,086.27. The bills list through October 24, $3,194,482.03. Credit card activity, not including Amazon purchases, ending August 31, $185,912.08. Moving right along, A3.1, we recommend the City Council authorize the manager to execute an agreement for the City of Evanston's inspection of large diameter water mains with Pure Technology in the not-to-exceed amount of $578,940. We recommend the city manager execute a contract for the purchase of anthracite with Carbonite Filter Corporation in the amount of $23,116.96. Also request you authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with Evanston School District 202 for the sale of rock salt. There's some incorrect dates here, by the way. Rock salt in the amount of $52.08 per ton for the period of November 15, 2017 to April 15, 2018. This includes a 10% administrative and handling fee. A3.4, we recommend the manager execute an agreement with the School District 65 for the sale of rock salt in the amount of $52.08 per ton for the same period of time, also including a 10% administration and handling fee. We request that you authorize the manager to execute an agreement with GovSense and NetSuite Oracle to purchase a rental inspection and registration software for the City of Evanston. Total cost of software platform licenses and support in year one will be $21,960.58 and $21,356.18 in year two. There's a one-time implementation, customization, and training cost capped at $18,500. The initial term will be set at 2 years with an option to renew an additional 2 years. We ask your approval for the adoption of Resolution 83R17, authorizing the manager to execute a collective bargaining agreement with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees Bargaining Unit, effective January 1, 2017 through December 31, 2018. Approval will ratify the tentative agreements executed through the negotiation process. We request your approval for Resolution 71R17, approving the open data policy for the City of Evanston. The policy will demonstrate the city's ongoing commitment to open data, transparency, and efficient city services. For action, also, we ask your approval for Resolution 80R17, authorizing the manager to sign notification of grant awards to fund and operate congregate senior meal programs at the Levy Center and Fleetwood Jourdain Center. This is a reimbursement program solely dependent on the number of lunches served. Budgeted expenses for 2017-18 are projected at $88,784. Donations are estimated to be $7,800. local cash match of $22,464 is expected. Resolution 78R17 will provide a standalone food scrap program for all voluntarily participating commercial and residential properties within the city of Evanston. We recommend a franchise agreement with Collective Resources, Inc. for collection, transportation, and disposal of food scraps. This is for introduction this evening.
Alderman Rady, I'm sorry, it's for action.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. This is a resolution, and it should not say introduction. It is for action this evening, and the committee recommends approval. For introduction tonight and for action and suspension of the rules is Ordinance 107-017, decreasing the number of Class D liquor licenses for Jilly's Cafe located at 2614 Green Bay Road. Also for introduction, suspension in the rules and action at the request of Alderman Ravel is Ordinance 108-017, increasing the number of Class D liquor licenses for Jilly's Cafe located at 2614 Green Bay Road for Suethan LLC, doing business as Jilly's Cafe located at 2614 Green Bay Road. They are the new owners. The local liquor commissioner recommends city council adoption of ordinance 109-017, increasing the number of Class C liquor licenses for R&R Evanston, doing business as Rock and Ravioli, located at 1012 Church Street. Alderman Wilson requests suspension of the rules and action tonight, in addition to introduction. So I move that. Liquor Commissioner recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 155-016, authorizing the sale of alcoholic liquor to registered guests of the hotel, the Orrington Hotel, from the Class C liquor license holders' leased space. This is for action tonight. The local Liquor Commissioner recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 110-017, decreasing the number of Class D liquor licenses for Farmhouse Evanston LLC, doing business as Farmhouse, located at 703 Church Street. They would like to change to a Class C liquor license. That's for introduction. Also for introduction is Ordinance 111-017, increasing the number of Class C liquor licenses for Farmhouse, doing business as Farmhouse, located at 703 Church Street. Ordinance 114-017 decreases the number of Class D liquor licenses for Sam's Chicken and Ribs Pizza, located at 1639 Orrington. They've gone out of business and no longer need their license. Staff recommends suspension of the rules and introduction and action this evening. Ordinance 105-017, the Transportation and Parking Committee recommend council adopt 105-017. The committee voted unanimously not to recommend this to the council. Ordinance 106-017, amending Code 1011-18, resident parking only district. The committee recommended unanimously not to move introduction to this to the council. There were no items for consideration. I move approval.
Second.
The only thing off our consent agenda was the Amazon.
I would like to, in going back and looking at some more details, I'd like you to remove the minutes from the consent agenda as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Was that a typo? Yes. On that one? Okay, and then before we vote, I just want to make note on A11, the ordinance that is being moved is ordinance 118-0-17. What was read and what is written here, Alderman Rainey, was 155-0-16. And that was, I believe, that was a typo in these. So we're moving ordinance 118-0-17. Okay.
I did read that.
You read 155. I just picked it up when you read that.
Yeah.
All right, Alderman Braithwaite.
Just one other small correction. I think we made this at P&W for item A7. It should read agreement with collective resource, singular, not plural.
Without the S.
Without the S.
Okay. All right.
He's probably watching right now.
All right, so we have a motion to move that was seconded. City Clerk Reed, could you take the roll?
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
Okay. All right, Alderman. How do I want to do this? Can I move A2 right now? Yeah, can you put forward A2.2, Alderman Rainey?
Aren't we supposed to do P&D then?
P&D first.
Oh, do I have to go back? Do I? All right.
P&D first.
Okay. All right. Alderman Nguyen, can you take us through the consent agenda for planning and development?
Yeah, but we do consent stuff first.
Item P1, granting vacation rental license for 2120 Madison Place. This is for action. P2, granting vacation rental license for 1612 Main Street for action. P3, Resolution 82R17 to accept planning staff assistant services delivered by the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning for the 2020 to 2024 assessment of fair housing. That also is for action. P4 is Ordinance 115-017, granting a special use for a commercial indoor recreation facility, SPENGA, at 1026 Davis Street at the request of Alderman Wilson. Alderman Wilson requests that we suspend the rules for introduction and have also vote on adoption tonight. Item P5 is Ordinance 88-017, granting a special use. This item, was at the request of the applicant, was held in the committee until Monday, November 13th. I'm sorry. And item P6 has been taken off the agenda. That completes my report.
Okay. Is there a motion to move this, the consent agenda on that?
I move approval.
City Clerk, could you take the roll?
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson. Aye. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
I've already said aye.
Okay, all right, so the consent agenda on planning and development passes 9-0. Okay. The
appointments.
Excuse me?
P&D.
Yeah, appointments.
AMPW.
Appointments.
Okay.
Well, I guess we'll just move appointments.
Okay.
I think the way we've done it in the past has actually been better, and we'll go back to that in the future meetings, which is we've done consent agenda all the way through and just done one vote. I think it was taking that Amazon thing has messed us up or something tonight. I don't know, or the fact that it's midnight. Okay, Alderman Wilson, can you present the appointments?
I move the approval of the appointments. AP1. Animal Welfare Board, Christy Bachman, Animal Welfare Board, Don Davis Zaineman, and Firemen's Pension Board, Alicia Spain.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the appointment's passed 9-0. All right, we're going to go back to the items that were taken off the consent agenda. Alderman Rainey, A2.2.
Mr.
Oh,
Mayor,
excuse me, sorry about that. M1 was the first one taken off, minutes.
I move that we hold the minutes until the following council meeting to address the inclusion of the executive session reference.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are held. Alderman Rainey, A2.2.
I move approval of the Amazon credit card activity for the period ending August 31st in the amount of $11,556.41.
Do we not? Okay. Clerk Reed, could you take the roll?
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin. Alderman Ravel. Alderman.
Aye.
Yep. Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. And then Alderman Nguyen.
All right. A2.2 passes 8-0 with one abstention, Alderman Suffredin. Clerk Reed?
Just a quick point of clarification from Alderman Wilson. Are you asking just that, what is the amendment to the minutes?
The minutes don't reference that we had the vote on the executive session. So I think they would need to reflect that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, great, thank you. Okay. P6 was held. Alderman Fisk, I think you pulled that off.
Yes, thank you. I just intend to vote against it, that's all.
Okay.
P6 is ordinance 103017, special use permit for planned development located at 1450 to 1508 Sherman Avenue in the downtown D4 Transition District. I move introduction.
Second.
Do I have to take a roll on that?
Yep.
All right, Clerk Reed, can you take a roll?
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Yep.
Alderman Nguyen.
No.
Okay, so P6 passes for introduction, 6-3. Okay. All right, that covers all the items that were taken off the consent agenda. Call of the wards. Who did we start with today? Alderman Wilson, was it you?
Reminder that there will be a ward meeting, combined fourth and second ward meeting at the Robert Crown Center this Thursday at 7:30 p.m., primarily to have a budget presentation and other community issues.
Terrific. Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Thank you. I want to thank Evanston Own It for their commitment to Summer Youth Job Program and their very generous efforts to raise funds to support that work. That is the 5th and the 2nd Ward faith community that is united in that effort. Also wanted to, I don't know if this is the time to do it. Thank you. I would like to know if I can have a moratorium exclusive to the 5th Ward for special use. We seem to have a pretty active real estate economy that's happening, and it's not hitting the MLS. There's some interesting transfers happening. So if I could also get a report on real estate transfer activity, as well as a report on vacant properties, and use that as an opportunity to connect to those property owners and let them know that they do not have to wholesale those properties out to developers and come up with creative uses when we have residents that are in need of affordable housing. There's affordable housing stock that we have, and it is being wholesaled out. And so I would like to also get an understanding and an assessment of our 5th Ward plan, our West End plan, and be more strategic about our steps forward. I'd also like to say that the storefront at 1829 is not one of those properties that I'm considering a pocket listing or one that was not listed. It was available on the MLS for $100,000, and it was negotiated down. So that's not one that I'm talking about. But every week I get, multiple residents that are calling, and houses are being transferred that they're renting, and there's a lot of distress. There's some predatory developers and buyers in the ward, and I would like to get a better understanding of what's happening. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could recap, I just want to make sure I caught all those. The 5th Ward have a law department look at how to do a moratorium on special use. Real estate transfer stamp, get an interim report wherever we're at on that, especially in the Fifth Ward, so I could probably do a by-ward report. We'll do that for everyone. Then the vacant properties, get our most up-to-date list on what we know to be vacant properties. That will come from probably inspections and other places, what we know to be vacant. And then a West End plan, bring that back. Do you wish a copy of it? Do you want it on the agenda? What would you like to do with the West End plan?
I have a copy. We've just had such full agendas that I haven't been able to really assess it, and I would like some time to review that with staff and the community.
So in other words, a meeting in the Fifth Ward to go over that, and we can, okay.
All right, Alderman Sufferton.
Yeah, combined 6th and 7th Ward meeting, November 2nd, 7 p.m., 3 Crowns. Discuss the budget and open discussion to follow.
Thank you. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
There was a very, very successful capital fundraiser for the Howard Street Theater, Theo Ubekwe, this weekend, and I just want to thank everybody who went to it and gave a lot of money.
Great. Excellent. Alderman Fleming.
I just want to make an announcement that tomorrow evening, so Tuesday at 6:30, Alderman Braithwaite and myself will be having not a ward meeting, but kind of just a meeting for residents around the 15 and 1600 block of Monroe and Madison and Washington to address some undesirable activity. That will be at 6:30 at Fire Station, I think it's number 2, the one on Washington.
Great. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at the Marion is a special First Ward meeting for a discussion of the proposed development on Chicago Avenue by the owners of the Marion. There'll be a very brief presentation on the budget by Marty. Also, I want to pick up a little bit on what Matt Rogers said tonight. And make a reference to P&D to refer to the Plan Commission to take a look at the 2009 downtown plan and see where our zoning ordinance and the plan don't provide consistent direction. I think Alderman Ravel raised a really important point, and perhaps some other of the comments also did, that we're not giving it's important that we move in the direction of giving developers a real sense of what it is that we expect to see in our downtown. And we're not doing that. And we can save a lot of this trouble. I mean, we've been through a real difficult month, and it's not just us. It's the people who have been trying to bring their concerns to our attention, and it's been a real difficult time, I think, for everyone. And so I think we need to take our responsibility pretty seriously, and that is let's see what we can do to arrive at a vision, and this is a good place to start. So I want to thank Mr. Rogers for making that suggestion. So the reference to the P&D committee and then on to Plan Commission. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a follow-up to Alderman Simmons' announcement regarding Evanston Own It. I'd just like to join her in thanking them for their advocacy as well, their presentation of the $6,000 check, which brings them up to $26,000 in support of the Mayor's Summer Youth Employment Program. I also want to announce to the Second Ward residents that this Thursday, 7 p.m., there'll be a joint Second and Fourth Ward ward meeting, 7 p.m. at Robert Crown. The focus of that meeting will be discussing the budget, and that's it.
Great. Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be having a Third Ward Town Hall meeting on Thursday, October 26th, from 7 to 8:30 at Lincoln School. We will also have a budget discussion, and we will have our usual ward and city topics. Thank you.
Great. A lot of meetings going on around town. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? All right. So this meeting is adjourned at midnight. Thank you.